This video will be on strings. In this video, I'm going to explain how to declare strings, how to assign values to strings, and then how to use those strings dynamically as we're printing them out and using them for useful purposes. So let's get started. You'll notice when you're working with strings that you do not have to have an import statement. In other programs we've done so far, you might have to say something like this: import, terminal IO, yada yada yada. We don't need one of these statements because strings are part of the standard Java. And so all we need to do is go inside our main method and get to work. We're going to start by declaring a couple strings. And when we do that, we have to type string, pay attention to the capital S, and I'm going to call this one first name. It will hold someone's first name. And I'm going to make another one, call it last name. I have both of these strings, and I've declared them. We call these both declaration statements, but they don't have values yet. So we're going to need to assign values to them with assignment statements like this. First name equals Tom, and last name equals Suey. These are both assignment statements, and obviously we could have assigned any sort of name here. Instead of Tom, we could have done Dale, or we could have done Susie, or whatever other name we wanted to choose. Same with last name. I want to call your attention to one thing before we move on, and that's how I chose this variable name. So first name and last name. It's standard convention that if you're going to use a variable name that really has two words, you have the second word start with a capital letter like this. And obviously you cannot have a space in between them. That doesn't work. And so you have to put them together, and again, lowercase letters except for the first letter of the second word should be capitalized. Alright, now that we have two variables and they've both been assigned values, we're ready to actually do something with them. And so the whole point of this program in particular, even though it's just called string practice, it will be, we're going to practice writing a letter using these strings dynamically, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do system.out.println, and this command will print out what these strings are. So I'm going to just type first name plus last name. I'm going to press compile, and if I haven't made a mistake, it'll compile. Good, it compiled. And I'm going to simply run my program. And notice that it says Tom Suey without a space in the middle, which is not really what we want. I don't know why we'd ever want to have it without the space, so we need to figure out a way to get the space in there. And understanding how to do that requires us to understand what exactly this plus means. When we've done math in Java, the plus sign made sense. It was addition. But here, it's actually not addition. It's what we call concatenation, which just is a fancy way of saying that we're going to join both strings together. So, plus, like this, we're really going to concatenate now three strings. The one that's stored in that variable, the ones that's stored in this variable, and then whatever I choose to put inside of these quotes. Now, anytime you see something like this where it's actually the quotes and then the string inside of it, in this case I'm just going to put a space, that is actually called a string literal. So this would be considered a string literal, and this would be considered a string literal. It's important to know that word just because it's referred to from time to time in programming. It's sort of contrasted with variables. So this is a variable, and that is a literal. Okay, if I compile now and I run my program, it is as expected. Tom space Suey. Alright, so this is going to be a letter, like I said, so we actually want to do something else. I want it to say, Dear Mr. Tom Suey, and then have a comma at the end of the line. To do this, I'm going to need to do some more concatenation. So, plus sign here, make another string literal that says, Dear Mr., and then notice that if I don't have that space there, Mr. and first name would be bumped right up against each other, and there would be no space. Okay, run. And it says, Dear Mr. Tom Suey. I forgot my comma at the end of that to make that proper. So, there it is. Compile, run one more time. And there it is. After this, we're going to want to actually write the message. So, another line after system.out.println. And I'm going to do system.out.println again. And this time I'm going to type the message. So, I'm going to have it say, Thank you for your many years of service. Okay, you can imagine that this might be a letter being sent out to someone named Tom Suey. Sounds like a reputable person. And I'm going to do one more line, system.out.println. And it will say, Sincerely. One last line, system.out.println. And we'll have it say, Mr. Reed. Alright, compile, run your program and see what it looks like. Each line comes right after the one before it, as you would expect. This print line message here, that's really saying to print it out each one on a new line. And we're going to actually figure out how to do this all in one single statement. Now, when I use the word statement, I'm using it very intentionally because every time you see something like this in Java, that's a statement. You can figure out what a statement is because it ends with a semicolon. So that was a statement, this is a statement, these are all statements. Okay, I can actually print out this entire thing that I'm doing in 4 statements in a single statement, and that's what I'm going to show you now. And it has everything to do with what we call special characters. Special characters are ones that I can't just type in here. Okay, I can type letters, I can type numbers in here, I can type mostly whatever I want to, but there's some special things. The first one I'm going to show you is the tab. For example, you might want to have spaces before this. So instead of being left aligned, it would actually be tabbed in. Well, I could just hit a bunch of spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Compile and run. And that would work. But I actually want to do something a little bit fancier, because hitting spaces is, I'm bound to make a mistake somewhere. Maybe I'll hit 4 instead of 5, 6 instead of 5, and there should just be an easier way, and that's the special character we call tab. To make a special character, I have to use a special little code, and the code involves what we call the escape character, which is the /. Now, pay close attention here. That's the one right above the enter key. Normally we use this slash for things. For example, if I was going to make a comment in my code, I would use that slash that tilts forward. But we're going to use the one that tilts backwards, and we're going to type the character T afterwards. This actually counts as a single character, just as the T is a character, the H is a character, the A is a character. If I typed in the number 9, that's a character. Even the space is a character. The tab is also a character. And what it's going to do, maybe you can guess, when I compile and run this, is it's going to add in a tab. Alright. So, there's also a special character for many other things, and the other one I'm going to show you is the new line character, because that's the most useful. So, when I look at this looks good, but the spacing could be better. So after this line, Dear Mr. Tom Suey, I personally would like if there were an extra space, a vertical space in there. Now, if I were typing in Microsoft Word, I could just hit enter again, but if I hit enter here, nothing's going to change. That didn't affect my code at all. If I run it, still looks the same. What I need is to insert an extra new line, and here's the new line character. Use the escape character, and then type N. Compile and run it now, and you'll notice that there's an extra space here. A new line. You know what? Now that I've done that, actually the rest of it looks kind of goofy because it's all scrunched together. So I personally would like a new line at the end of each one of these, except for the last one. And once I have these in, everything will be just spaced apart. Okay, take a look. It's looking a lot better at this point. But like I said, I have 4 statements here, which isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with this code. I just want to show you that you could actually do it with a single statement. So I'm going to carefully delete this one right there from the parenthesis all the way. Alright. And I'm going to keep deleting until it's back up here. Alright. I'm going to use the concatenation operator. Notice that the last thing on this line was a plus sign. That way when the Java compiler gets there, when it sees the plus sign, it knows, oh, I'm going to look down to the next line to see if there's anything there I should concatenate. And there is, so it will find it, and it will concatenate and combine the two together. I'm going to delete this as well, and do the same thing. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Alright, compile. It compiled. Good, I didn't make a mistake. It knew what to do, and I run it. And the first thing you'll notice is that we don't have those extra vertical spaces in there anymore. They've left. That's because, as I said, the print line command actually will add in an extra line at the end. Basically, it adds in a new line character for you at the end without you having to explicitly say so. But now, since we don't have that luxury of having a bunch of print line statements, we're going to actually have to add one in manually ourselves. So there it is. Another one here. And another one here. Compile and run, and it should work. Okay. Dear Mr. Suey, Mr. Tom Suey, thank you for your many years of service. Sincerely, Mr. Reed. And if we take a step back and we look at our code, I'm going to get rid of this comment because we don't need it. It's very simple. We've got our declaration statements, we've got our assignment statements, and lastly we have our print line statement. It's not many statements. And if we wanted to say this even more concisely, we can combine our declaration statements and our assignment statements, like this. I'm going to use Control X here to cut. Same thing here. We could have done that in one line. So now our declaration and assignment statements all happen in the same line as part of the same statement. Compile, and it works. The last thing we want to do with strings in this lesson, now that we've got our letter working, we want to be able to figure out how long a string is. And the reason I'm bringing that up in this lesson is because when we think of strings, and maybe I should have said this at the very beginning, but when we think of strings, we need to think of them as sequences of characters. So I'm going to actually write that out as a definition. String equals a sequence of characters. And notice that this is a comment. Whenever you do 2 slashes like that, that's going to be a comment. The compiler completely ignores it, doesn't even look at it at all. But what are characters? And as I said earlier, characters are really any symbol you could find on your keyboard. It could be a letter, a number, capital letters. It could be a question mark, a pound sign, money sign. It can even be spaces, tabs, and even the new line is considered a character. So what I'm going to do to end this is I'm going to actually use a method of strings. And we're gonna test it out. The method is called length, and as you might guess, length returns or will show you how many characters are in that string. So if I do system.out.println and I do hello, well, this is an easy one. You know just by looking at it that in hello there are 5 characters. So if I type hello.println length, like this, and I compile and I run, well, what did it print out? It printed out a 5, because there are 5 characters in hello. But what if I do something like this? I add in 2 spaces at the end. I told you that space is a character, but that seems maybe a little strange, so let's check. Yes, in fact, it printed out 7, because it counted both spaces as characters. Now, I'd also told you that tab was a character, but that's kind of odd because I actually typed in 2 symbols there. If I'm telling the truth, there should be 8, 1, and then 5 for hello, and 2 more for spaces. And in fact, it is 8. And just as one last piece of proof, I'm going to do a new line character as well. Compile, run, and it's at 9, as expected. Great. So you can tell that strings have different lengths based on the number of characters they have. And strings are very useful. You can use them with all sorts of things. Creating a custom letter is just one example, but really the sky is the limit on this one. You're going to use these throughout the rest of the class, and make sure you study these and know them for the quiz tomorrow. Good luck, everybody. I will see you after lunch.